Have you ever met someone in a dream, or even in real life, who felt like they were guiding you with a wisdom far beyond your years? It could be an old man with kind eyes, a teacher sitting quietly by the fire, or even a wanderer with tired steps but words that carried a glow like sacred fire. Sometimes this figure is not a person you know in reality. He might appear in a dream, on the pages of a book, or in a memory you can't quite place. Yet the feeling is undeniable. You are being guided. In Carl Jung's psychology, this figure is one of the most important archetypes. The wise old man. Think about the dreams you've had, where a mentor handed you a book, where a mysterious elder sat at the crossroads offering advice, or where a voice you couldn't recognize whispered something unforgettable. To most people, these images would seem random, but Jung believed nothing in the psyche is truly random. Every symbol carries a message from the collective unconscious, and the wise old man is the image of guidance, of clarity, of direction when the conscious mind is lost. In cultures across the world, the wise elder appears as a vital link in the story of the hero. Remember Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings, Dumbledore in Harry Potter, or Yoda in Star Wars. They are not the central characters, yet without them the hero would never find the way forward. They provide not just knowledge, but also the courage to continue when the night feels too dark. They are the living embodiments of what Jung identified as the archetype of the wise old man. What's fascinating is that this archetype doesn't always take the form of a human being. In dreams, the guide might appear as a book, a lantern, a key, or even an animal that suddenly speaks. Jung believed the unconscious uses such symbols to guide us precisely when our ego has no idea what to do. When logic fails, the psyche offers a guide. And in that moment, the wise old man steps into view. Why do we need such a figure? Because modern life is full of noise. Advertisements, social media, work pressure, shallow conversations, these drown out the inner voice. When we lose touch with the deeper wisdom within, our lives fall into chaos. The wise old man doesn't appear to live our life for us, but to remind us that the path is already there, that light is already within us. He is the mirror reflecting what we've forgotten. When Jung studied the dreams of his patients, he often found this archetype appearing at moments of crisis. A woman on the edge of divorce dreamed of a professor handing her a map. A man stuck in a dead-end career dreamed of an old hermit giving him a lantern. These dreams were not meaningless. They were the psyche's way of healing itself, of gifting wisdom at the very moment when life felt hopeless. This archetype has deep roots in myth and religion. Figures like Moses, Socrates, Confucius, and the Buddha all carry the essence of the wise old man. They are more than historical personalities. They are symbols of timeless guidance, of the voice that leads not only individuals but entire communities. Jung noticed that every culture has such figures, from ancient tribes to great civilizations. That alone tells us something profound. Humanity is born with a need for wisdom, and our souls will always seek a guide. But let's be clear, the wise old man is not always gentle. Sometimes he arrives through hardship. He may appear as a painful truth, a harsh word, or a failure you didn't see coming. These are not punishments. They are lessons. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The wise old man is one way the unconscious becomes visible. He reminds us that even in darkness, there are seeds of light waiting to grow. So is the wise old man just an illusion? A random figure of the imagination? Or is he a universal symbol that truly exists in the collective unconscious, waiting for us to pause long enough to hear him? Maybe the answer doesn't matter as much as what happens when we encounter him. Because each time he appears, he brings with him the chance to listen more deeply, to wake up to the wisdom already within us, and to accept a gift that may change the course of our journey. Asterisk. Why does this ancient figure still matter today? In a world overflowing with information. After all, we live in the 21st century, with knowledge at our fingertips. Google can answer a question in less than a second. Bookshelves are stacked with self-help titles. Podcasts stream nonstop advice. And yet, millions of people still feel lost. Anxiety is at an all-time high, depression rates climb each year, and countless individuals confess that they don't know what direction their life is truly heading. This is where the wise old man archetype quietly steps into relevance. Jung believed that wisdom is not the same as information. Wisdom has depth, weight, and timing. You can memorize 1,000 facts and still be blind to the truth you need most. The wise old man doesn't appear to flood you with more noise. He appears to cut through it. His role is not to overwhelm but to distill. That is why, across cultures, he is portrayed as someone who speaks in few words, but words that ring with authority. In a single phrase, he can shift the direction of the hero's journey. In a dream, one gesture can turn despair into a spark of courage. In American culture today, this archetype shows up in surprising ways. Consider how many people feel drawn to mentors, life coaches, or spiritual guides. Even in movies and TV shows, the mentor figure continues to captivate. Think of Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid, giving short, almost cryptic lessons that only later reveal their depth. Or Morpheus in The Matrix, offering Neo a choice between the red pill and the blue pill. These figures embody the same pattern Jung identified. The psyche longs for a guide who can reveal a deeper truth. But here's what makes this archetype more than just storytelling. The wise old man doesn't exist only on a movie screen or in myths. He shows up inside us. Jung taught that archetypes are not external figures, but inner potentials. When we encounter the wise old man, what we are really meeting is the part of ourselves capable of perspective, patience, and higher vision. In other words, the archetype is the psyche's way of reminding us that the wisdom we seek out there is already present within. This matters because modern society often glorifies speed, youth, and constant innovation. Wisdom, on the other hand, grows in silence, slowness, and reflection. The wise old man archetype pulls us against the current of a culture obsessed with novelty. He asks us to pause. He asks us to listen. He asks us to question not only what we are doing, but why. And in doing so, he offers something rare in a world addicted to quick fixes, a sense of inner grounding. Think about the moments in your own life when you felt utterly directionless. Maybe you were in your 20s, pressured to choose a career while secretly unsure of who you even were. Maybe you were in your 40s, suddenly aware that the goals you chased for decades left you feeling hollow. Or maybe you were in your 60s, wrestling with questions about legacy and meaning. In those moments, what you craved was not another Google search result. What you needed was guidance, something deeper, something timeless. That is exactly the role the archetype fills. Jung observed that patients often projected this archetype onto real people. A therapist, a professor, a priest, or even a wise grandparent could carry the image. But he warned that the figure itself is bigger than any single person. If you cling to one human being as if they are the source of wisdom, you risk disappointment. The human will eventually fail, but the archetype endures. Its true power lies in leading you back to your own inner compass. The wise old man is never meant to be worshipped. He is meant to point you home. This is especially important in American society, where the myth of self-reliance runs strong. People are taught to figure things out alone, to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But deep inside, everyone knows that self-reliance has limits. The psyche longs for guidance. The archetype of the wise old man reconciles these two truths. You are not meant to depend on someone else to live your life, but you are also not meant to wander without direction. The guide appears as a reminder that asking for wisdom is not weakness, it is the beginning of strength. And so, in a world drowning in data but starving for meaning, the wise old man archetype is more relevant than ever. He is the antidote to information overload. He is the quiet voice that cuts through the static. He is the whisper in a dream that says, there is a way forward. And when people recognize him not as a fantasy, but as a symbol of their own deeper self, they begin to see that guidance is always closer than they imagined. To understand the wise old man archetype more deeply, we need to remember how Jung defined an archetype in the first place. Archetypes, according to Jung, are not invented by culture. They are universal patterns that emerge from the collective unconscious. They are like timeless blueprints, shaping the way humans dream, tell stories, and search for meaning. When people across different cultures who have never met share the same images and symbols in their myths, Jung saw this as evidence of the archetypal realm. The wise old man is one of the most striking of these figures, appearing again and again wherever human beings have wrestled with uncertainty. At its core, this archetype symbolizes knowledge, reflection, and spiritual insight. He is not the same as a father figure, though he may sometimes overlap. The father often represents authority and structure, while the wise old man represents something subtler, the voice of the deeper psyche, offering orientation when the conscious ego falters. Jung noticed that this figure often enters the story when the hero is confused, lost, or about to give up. The appearance of the guide signals that the psyche itself is preparing for transformation. If you study myths and religions, you find this archetype everywhere. In Greek mythology, there is Chiron, the wounded centaur who teaches heroes the healing arts. In the Hebrew Bible, Moses stands as a leader who not only delivers laws, but also provides spiritual direction. In Buddhism, the image of the sage under the Bodhi tree becomes a symbol of awakening for countless seekers. In Native American traditions, elders pass down wisdom through stories around the fire. Different names, different faces, but the same role, the transmission of timeless knowledge at the threshold of change. Jung believed the wise old man appears most vividly in dreams. Patients described recurring dreams where an old man would give them a tool, a piece of advice, or even just a look that carried meaning. Jung understood these moments as the unconscious communicating with the conscious mind through symbol. The gift in the dream wasn't random. It pointed toward what the dreamer most needed to realize. For example, someone trapped in endless routine might dream of a lantern being handed to them. That lantern symbolizes light in the darkness, a reminder that the path forward exists, even if it cannot yet be seen. It's important to note that the wise old man isn't always pleasant. Sometimes he delivers messages we do not want to hear. He may show up as a stern figure, pointing out truths we've ignored. He may even appear as a trickster-like elder who confuses us before guiding us toward a deeper realization. This reflects Jung's conviction that growth is rarely comfortable. Real wisdom does not flatter the ego. It challenges it. The guide's purpose is not to reassure us, but to help us expand beyond our current limitations. Another key detail is that this archetype often pairs with another, the hero. The two are bound together in countless stories. The hero represents the striving ego, full of energy, but also naive and easily misled. The wise old man represents the unconscious, the storehouse of wisdom that balances the hero's impulsiveness. Without the guide, the hero burns out or falls prey to arrogance. Without the hero, the guide has no one to carry wisdom into action. The dynamic between them reflects a balance each of us must learn, between youthful drive and mature reflection, between acting and knowing, psychologically. The wise old man represents our own capacity for higher reasoning and insight. Jung insisted that archetypes are not external deities, though they often take on religious forms. They are living patterns inside the psyche. This means that when we dream of the guide or encounter him in stories, we are actually encountering our own potential for wisdom. Recognizing this archetype is a way of making the unconscious conscious. It is as if the psyche is saying, "Look, you already have the resources to navigate this moment. Trust the deeper part of yourself." Modern life makes this archetype harder to hear, but also more necessary. The culture of constant distraction keeps people locked in the surface level of thought. Yet underneath, the wise old man archetype is still active, still trying to speak through symbols, synchronicities, and inner impressions. The challenge is to recognize him when he appears, not dismiss him as random imagination. To Jung, imagination was never just imagination. It was the royal road to the unconscious. So when we talk about the wise old man, we're not describing just a character in old stories. We are pointing to a timeless function of the human psyche, the emergence of guidance when we need it most. Sometimes this guidance comes as a dream. Sometimes it comes as a book that suddenly falls into our hands. Sometimes it comes through a person who says exactly what we need to hear at the right moment. Jung called this synchronicity, the meaningful coincidence that feels like fate. However it arrives, the message is the same. You are not abandoned in the dark. There is wisdom available, and it comes from within as much as from without. Asterisk. So how does the archetype of the wise old man actually show up in your life, and what can you do with it? Jung's work wasn't meant to stay trapped in textbooks or academic circles. He believed that psychology only matters if it can be lived, and the archetypes are only valuable when you recognize them moving inside you. The wise old man is no exception. He isn't just an old character in fairy tales. He is a living pattern in your own psyche that waits to be noticed. The question is, can you hear him? Start with your dreams. Dreams are the most direct stage where this archetype performs. Pay attention to figures who seem older, wiser, or who hand you objects. Maybe it's a grandfather figure, a stranger on a bench, or even a woman who carries the same guiding energy in a feminine form. Ask yourself, what were they trying to communicate? Was the gift symbolic, a key, a map, a light? Did the figure speak or simply appear at a crucial moment? Write it down. Keep a dream journal. Over time, you'll see that the unconscious doesn't waste its imagery. The appearance of the wise old man is an invitation to listen, but dreams aren't the only place he speaks. Life itself becomes the stage. Think about those times when you felt at a crossroads, unsure whether to take one job or another, to leave a relationship or to stay, to move to a new city or remain where you are. In those moments, did you ever stumble across a book that seemed written just for you? Did a stranger say something that pierced through your confusion? Did you find yourself remembering the words of a teacher long after you left school? These are not random coincidences. Jung would call them synchronicities, the meaningful alignments, where the archetype finds a way to reach you through external events. You could also engage this archetype intentionally. Meditation, journaling, and inner dialogue are practices Jung often encouraged. One technique, called active imagination, invites you to close your eyes and imagine a dialogue with the wise old man. Ask him a question. Let the unconscious respond with images or words. At first it might feel strange, as if you're just making things up. But over time, you'll realize that these exercises tap into a deeper layer of your psyche, one that holds insights you didn't know you had. Many people who try this report receiving advice or imagery that later proves profoundly relevant in relationships. The wise old man archetype can help you recognize projection. Maybe you've looked at a mentor, therapist, or even a partner as if they had all the answers. That's projection of the archetype. You are unconsciously placing your inner wisdom onto them. Recognizing this doesn't mean dismissing their value. It means understanding that the real source of guidance is within you. The mentor outside you is a mirror for the mentor inside. The archetype is calling you to claim that wisdom rather than depend entirely on someone else. In everyday practice, you can make space for this archetype by slowing down. Modern culture pushes constant acceleration, but wisdom doesn't rush. Take walks without headphones. Sit quietly with a question instead of instantly Googling the answer. Write letters to yourself as if they were coming from an older, wiser version of you. You may be surprised by the clarity that emerges. Often, what feels like intuition or sudden insight is the archetype surfacing, The wise old man also shows up during midlife, when many people face what Jung called the midlife transition. In your 20s and 30s, life is often about building career, family, identity. But by the 40s and 50s, many begin to ask deeper questions. Why am I here? What really matters? This is when the voice of wisdom becomes essential. If ignored, it can lead to crisis, burnout, or despair. If embraced, it can guide you into a richer, more authentic chapter of life. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming your true self, cannot unfold without listening to this archetypal guide. Another way to apply this archetype is through storytelling. Pay attention to the books, movies, and myths that move you. Why are you drawn to Yoda, Dumbledore, or Gandalf? What qualities in them speak to you right now? The attraction you feel is not random entertainment. It is the unconscious resonating with a symbol it needs. Let those stories teach you. Let them awaken the inner guide. Art and myth are not just distractions. They are mirrors for the psyche. Ultimately, the archetype of the wise old man is about trust. Trust that wisdom exists within you, even when you feel lost. Trust that the unconscious knows more than the ego admits. Trust that guidance will appear in the form you need, whether in a dream, a conversation, or a sudden realization. The archetype is not a fantasy. It is a living pattern of the human soul, as real as hunger or love. And when you choose to recognize it, you step into a dialogue with the deepest parts of yourself. Asterisk. The real power of the wise old man archetype lies in transformation. His presence isn't meant to entertain or comfort us with nice stories. It's meant to shift us, to bring about a turning point in the way we see ourselves and the world. When the archetype emerges, whether in a dream, a mentor, or an inner voice, it signals that you are standing on the edge of growth. Something in you is ready to evolve. The figure's wisdom is the spark, but the change depends on whether you listen. Transformation begins with recognition. When you acknowledge that this archetype is alive within you, you begin to look at your experiences differently. Instead of dismissing a dream as nonsense, you ask what it might be saying. Instead of brushing off a meaningful coincidence, you wonder if it's pointing you in a direction. Instead of ignoring the advice of your own intuition, you start to honor it. The shift is subtle but powerful. Life stops feeling random and begins to feel like a dialogue between your conscious self and the deeper psyche. The takeaway here is not that you should idolize old men in stories or treat every dream like prophecy. It's that you should recognize the function of wisdom in your own life. Jung emphasized that archetypes are internal patterns. The wise old man is you, your capacity for patience, for reflection, for guidance when your surface mind is too clouded to see. To accept this archetype is to accept that you are more than your thoughts, more than your impulses, more than the role society assigns you. You are also a vessel of timeless wisdom, part of the collective unconscious that has guided humanity for ages. Once you grasp this, you can start to live differently. Imagine facing a decision, and instead of panicking, you pause and ask, what would the wiser part of me say? You sit with the question, and you let the silence answer. Maybe the response comes as a feeling of calm, nudging you toward patience. Maybe it comes as a sudden flash of insight. Maybe it doesn't come immediately at all, but shows up a few days later in the words of a stranger or in a scene from a book. This is how transformation unfolds, not in lightning bolts, but in gentle shifts that slowly reorient your life. Transformation also involves humility. The wise old man archetype reminds us that no matter how much we know, there's always more to learn. The ego wants control, but wisdom invites surrender. The archetype teaches that growth doesn't come from having all the answers, but from learning to ask the right questions. Wisdom isn't about domination. It's about openness. By surrendering to this process, you stop treating life as something to conquer and begin treating it as something to engage with. Another takeaway is resilience. When you remember that wisdom is available within you, even in your darkest times, despair loses some of its grip. You may still feel pain, but you no longer feel entirely lost. You carry the sense that guidance will arrive, that the psyche has resources you haven't tapped yet. This kind of resilience doesn't make you invincible, but it makes you steady. It allows you to move through crises with the knowledge that something deeper is holding you. In practical terms, transformation means integrating this archetype into daily life. That might look like journaling with questions for your inner guide. It might mean honoring dreams by reflecting on their symbolism instead of dismissing them. It might mean slowing down when you're about to make a rash decision, giving wisdom room to speak. These small practices accumulate. Over time, they reshape not just your choices but your sense of identity. You no longer see yourself as merely reactive. You begin to see yourself as someone in dialogue with a deeper source. Ultimately, the takeaway is that the wise old man is not an external savior. He is a symbol of what already exists within you. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires integrating this archetype. Without it, you remain trapped in cycles of confusion and repetition. With it, you gain orientation, depth, and a sense of meaning that can carry you through life's inevitable storms. So the next time you encounter a dream of a teacher, or find yourself strangely moved by the words of an elder in a movie, or stumble across advice that feels perfectly timed, pause and pay attention. Ask yourself, is the wise old man speaking? If so, what is he asking me to see that I've overlooked? What part of me is ready to grow? If you carry these questions with sincerity, you will find that transformation begins not in dramatic fireworks, but in the quiet unfolding of wisdom already waiting inside you. Asterisk: at the end of every hero's story, the mentor eventually steps aside. Gandalf disappears for a time, Yoda passes away, Dumbledore falls, and yet the hero continues. This is not because the guide has abandoned them, but because the purpose of the archetype has been fulfilled. The wisdom has been handed over, and now it lives inside the one who once sought it. That is how the wise old man works in our own lives. He comes not to carry us, but to awaken the part of us that can carry ourselves. When you think about your own journey, you might notice the voices of teachers, parents, mentors, or even strangers who shaped you with a single sentence. Some of them are long gone. Some of them you may never meet again. But their words echo because they tapped into something larger than themselves. They carried, for a moment, the energy of the archetype, and in doing so they left you a gift. The responsibility now is yours, to keep listening, to let that wisdom grow, and eventually to become a guide for others. The archetype is not only what you receive, it is also what you give. That is perhaps the most profound takeaway. The wise old man doesn't remain outside of you forever. If you truly integrate him, you eventually embody his qualities. One day you might be the one who says a word that changes someone else's direction. One day you might be the mentor figure in someone else's dream. Archetypes are not fixed statues. They are living patterns that move from person to person, generation to generation. By recognizing the guide in yourself, you join the timeless chain of human wisdom. This matters because the world today needs wisdom more than ever. We live in a time of division, distraction, and disorientation. Young people search for meaning. Older people search for legacy. In between, countless souls feel caught in the noise, unsure where to turn. If more of us could recognize and embody the archetype of the wise old man, we would create a culture that values depth over speed, meaning over noise, guidance over empty chatter. The archetype is not just personal. It has collective significance. When individuals find their inner guide, communities become steadier, and societies less fragile. And so the closing thought is simple. Do not wait for wisdom to arrive from the outside. Look within. Listen to your dreams. Pay attention to the synchronicities that cross your path. Trust that the archetype is alive and speaking. Wisdom is not gone from the world. It is hidden, waiting, ready to rise in anyone willing to hear it. If this message resonates with you, take it as an invitation. Not just to keep watching videos like this, but to begin a practice of listening to the wiser part of yourself. And if you found something here worth carrying, share it with someone who might need it. Wisdom grows by being passed along. And finally, if you want to continue exploring Jung's insights, the archetypes, the shadow, the dreams, the patterns that shape our lives, consider joining this journey. Subscribe, stay connected, and let each insight be another spark in the ongoing alchemy of your mind. Transformation doesn't happen all at once. It happens one realization at a time. This is the path. This is the work. And the wise old man walks with you, even now.